Thank you for joining us on our journey here to preserve the history of mixed martial arts. When I wanted to take on this project, I needed help. I brought in one of my favorite matchmakers, Miguel Iturrate, and the MMA detective, Mike Davis. So to do this, we've been able to preserve history. Welcome and enjoy.
Welcome to Lights Out Podcast. I am the MMA detective, Mike Davis. Along with me, my partner in crime, Miguel Iturrate. Miguel, we've got a special guest today, Francisco Bueno.
Yeah, but anytime we can add a black belt to our ranks and a black belt of this level who's, teaching and creating other black belts, then we're very happy. It's a pleasure to have you, Francisco.
Thank you so much, Miguel. Thank you so much, Mike, to have me in the show. I love you guys' work. It's beautiful what you guys been doing for the whole sport.
Yeah, trying. We're trying. So we've kind of tiptoed our way into the jiu-jitsu world. You're one of those guys that rides between both MMA and jiu-jitsu, which makes our job incredibly easy, or I should say easier. But let's start from the beginning. You actually are a black belt in judo under George Mehdi?
Yes. George Mehdi. George, one of the guys in the world, he's a legend.
Right.
He's totally a legend. He's the only Western guy that received a samurai in a public park in Japan. George has a beautiful journey. He's a French guy. He was a judo fighter. And he enjoyed the Gracies in the early beginning. So he the type of guy, he kind of, did all the groundwork and pretty much has the stand-up also. There's the thing that Gracies didn't have it, and he's still not having it. They're more like a jiu-jitsu ground fighter. So the stand-up sucks, They're not good at the throws and in the striking. We already know that. But George was amazing, man. He was like he was a superstar. He lined up all the Gracies. And then he had a school that he didn't like actually jiu-jitsu guys going to the school. But all the top guys, they allowed to go there and make a big difference in their career.
Okay, so some of the top guys, Mario Sperry, Bustamante, yourself. So just so people can kind of get a little history lesson, George Mehdi, I'm glad you corrected me on that. He actually practiced Kosen judo techniques in Japan for 5 years directly under Kimura, who
exactly that's the guy.
Jiu-jitsu from Japan,
and Sato too, yeah,
to Brazil.
Yes.
Where you guys kind of put your own ingredients and spin on it, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is formed, correct?
Correct. Since you mentioned that, there's a lot of, how can I say and what can I say? George became a father for me. I was in his army. I was in the first line, George, in Brazil. And he always told me there is no such a thing as Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And remember, to make another observation, I'm a coral belt, not a black belt in Jiu-Jitsu. I'm a coral belt. It's a higher rank. It comes after 30 years of black belt. Yeah. Actually, Mike, I'm the youngest coral belt in the history of the Jiu-Jitsu.
That's awesome.
That's fantastic.
I cannot have the coral belt because of my age, but the federation and the confederation, they got it together. They want to do that to me. I was happy. It was the beginning of this year that I got my coral belt. So that was a very incredible accomplishment in my life, not even my career. But going back to Jiu-Jitsu, George always said there is no such a thing as Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Yes, that's a bomb. You know, sometimes I tell that, but sometimes I've been hiding that stuff. But that's the true. The true history is Konji Koma. Konji Koma is a Japanese guy. He's a judo guy that he was sent to Brazil, and Koma means fifth. So it means he was a bad guy in Japan. So they throw him in Brazil. So he was a judo guy. And then he got together with Carlos Gracie and Igor Gracie. And then Carlos became his student. And they pretty much focused more on the ground because there was very skinny guys, Carlos and Igor. So they work on the ground game a lot, called Senjudo, we call Newaza. And then Gracie, like always, they have a very good marketing in the world, you know. They done it pretty well, the image and marketing. They call Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. You know, they deserve it. They work hard. They accomplish that. But that's a true story. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is Kosen Judo or Newaza.
Okay.
It sounds like, you know, from your stories and the way you're talking to, that you come from a branch of jiu-jitsu that holds the Gracies in rival. Why don't you talk about how that rivalry developed?
Yes, Miguel, it's like this. First of all, I was when I was a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, or Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, or Jiu-Jitsu, whatever you want to call it. I felt like I need something else, you know. I feel like I wasn't a complete fighter, even when we're talking about gi, okay, with the gi, traditional gi. And then I went to George Mehdi, and I knew there was a hiding school. No, he doesn't like jiu-jitsu guys. He said the technique was very poor, like they developing the wrong system, blah, blah, blah. And I went to check it out, and pretty much I became his son, like the first line of his gym. And of course, I kept doing my jiu-jitsu with André Pederneiras, Nova União, one of the biggest in the world for sure. I got my black belt in 1993. I got my black belt.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So, and I was like already like a 10 times Brazilian champion. All the tournaments in Rio, I got the most technical fighters. In the first Brazilian championship, they call Mameluke, was in Rio de Janeiro. So I won with Amaury Bitech. So that was a long time ago.
You went up against Bitech in the finals?
No, I actually won the same tournament. He won. He was heavier than I was. He won a heavier division. I won actually back in the days. I was a 175, 170, something like that. In the whole tournament, the fastest submission in the whole tournament. And I was a champion in my weight also. So that was a big night. We're talking about 1992, 1993, something like that.
Bitech is somebody I hold in the highest of regards. Had he not ran into Don Frye, I think he would have been the next Brazilian world champion. It's just he ran into a real bad matchup that night.
I agree, Mike.
Yeah, Bitech is a savage. You also grappled in Rickson Gracie's association tournaments, and you won that as well. Am I correct?
Yes, you're correct. Actually, Rickson tried to set it up, my super fight against Rigan Machado. That's a very big gossip around the jiu-jitsu world in LA back in the days, also in Brazil. He challenged the whole Machado family, and the one that stepped up was Rigan. And like a week before the fight, he backed down. He chickened out. To tell you, being straight, he chickened out. because he heard some stories about my training, all that gossip around that goes back in the days. There's no internet, there's no Instagram, there's no social media, so people talk. So, and then he back off, and then he set it up for his brother, Jean-Jacques Machado. He was much smaller than I was, and I was really surprised. I love it. Say, that's good, let's do it. And then 2 days before the super fight of a Rickson tournament, Jean-Jacques back off too. So that was a crazy day. Joe Moreira would, you know Joe Moreira, of course, yeah. He'll tell you the story. Yeah, he'll tell you the story better than I do, because he loved that stuff. You know, I had just arrived in America. You know, I've been training with all those guys, and people are getting freaked out. So, and he said, okay, you know what? Let's do this challenge in a black belt Korean Airlines, Joe Moreira. So he ended up, they didn't want to fight, and they put another guy under his rank, a black belt called Renato Magno. You might know him. So I ended up fighting for the belt against him, and I became a champion in that tournament also. So I was man, I'm talking is a long years ago, you know, that was good.
Do you think that based on your association with George Mehdi, that your history isn't as well documented, almost like it was intentionally put aside?
Mike, 100%. I was never a media guy, you know. I never liked the media. I just did like a martial arts, jiu-jitsu, judo, and all the because, man, I've done everything: boxing, wrestling, karate, Muay Thai, kickboxing, savate, French boxing. I was telling you, man, I'm a belt in coral belt in jiu-jitsu, a black, we call not black belt, but black belt in Muay Thai, a silver belt, I won under the black belt in French boxing. So I've done a lot of things in martial arts, but I never was a media guy. And because of George Mehdi, even my instructor back in the days, André Pederneiras, that we make a lot of, you know, difference in the MMA world, because I brought André to Las Vegas, you know, to meet John Lewis, and then they become doing that here. We brought a lot of fighters, Jose Aldo, Rafael Corino, back in the days. But that bothers a lot of people in jiu-jitsu community and the media. So I was kind of the black sheep, you know. So
100%.
I'm used 100%. To that. Yeah, I'm used to that, you know. But people that knows me over there back in Brazil, you know, but there's a real guys and then there's a fake guys in jiu-jitsu. So,
me,
Mike,
you're not from the Gracie branch. So I've got a question in regards to September 26th, 1991. It's the first time that Luta Livre and Jiu-Jitsu collide, and they have 3 matches, and it's broadcasted all over Brazil on TV. The matches were Fabio Vergel, somebody you went up against, versus Denilson Maia, Murilo Bustamante, Marcel Mendez, and I think there was one. One more. It was Walidish. Yes. So that night was Jiu-Jitsu versus Luta Livre. Were you in attendance?
I was there, actually. I was there, right on the ring, you know. But like I said, back in the days, at that fight, I only trained Jiu-Jitsu. I was, I guess I was a purple belt at that time. Purple brown, getting to a black belt. I gotta remember. I don't remember exactly, but I trained with a lot with Amaury Bitech, who the one supposed to be in the card instead of Fabio Gurgel. They trained under Carlos Gracie. So that was an amazing night. That was an amazing night. But
so that was historically is like the first time really MMA in the Americas has ever been televised. What did you think of the fights that night? I know Luta Livre went 0-3, but there seemed to be some kind of judging, I don't know, bias, referee bias, I should say.
Jiu-Jitsu won.
Yes.
Yeah, Jiu-Jitsu won. It wasn't Luta Livre. Yeah, Jiu-Jitsu won for 3-0, of course. And it was kind of crazy, the rivalry back in the days. You know, I actually, to tell you the truth, I'm a black belt in Luta Livre too. I'm under Hugo Duarte. He's a big friend of mine. Yeah, we trained together, you know, great guy. He's, you know, a big friend of mine. We always talk, you know, and but to tell you the truth, the difference between Luta Livre and Jiu-Jitsu is big. It's huge, actually. Even Jiu-Jitsu does the ground game pretty much with the gi. When we take the gi off, we way ahead of Luta Livre. I'm sorry, you know, all the Luta Livre guys. Like I said, I'm a black belt Luta Livre also, but it's a big difference. You know, the way I see it, Luta Livre put more like strength and like a try to neck cracks, and Jiu-Jitsu is much more technical than the Luta Livre, of course.
Did you ever roll with Rickson Gracie?
Actually, that's I don't know if you asked that question with a kind of, you know, like you already know something that happened. Is a big gossip that back in the days. I had a student of mine, he was a purple belt, and then he said, man, I want to see, he's a big friend of Rickson, he's a famous guy. He ended up dying in Brazil, you know, as a robbery. But he was one of the manager of Marco Ruas also, you know, and he said, I want to see that match, man. I got to take you to Rickson's house. You're going to roll with him. I'm sure you're going to kill him, because he rolled with Rickson a couple times. And then we went to his house at Pacific Palisades. I remember in LA, you know, close to Malibu. When man, I was very excited. I was turned on. I said, I'm going to smash that guy. You know, I don't care. I was, you know, young, very hype. You know, I never believed in that magical stuff, you know, so I just want to go and try and test it. So we're going over there, and then he started rolling with him. That was, you know, and I start to warm it up, you know, to be on my time. My gap, he looked at me, gave me a slap in my shoulder, and said, oh man, you're too strong today. I'm gonna serve. I don't want to get tired. So we do this another day. So we never end up rolling. We never end up training. And that's a true story.
Wow.
Okay. What made you come to the United States? When did you decide to move and understand that you had to come here?
Mike, there was 1996. I was multiple times state champion, Brazilian champion. A lot of guys talk about my jiu-jitsu, my ground game. And this guy that I just talked about it, Marco Jara, the one who got killed in Brazil. I went to Joe Moreira in Los Angeles to train, and I roll with all those guys, and they get really impressed. And he said, Chico, do you want to come here? I open up a school, we be partners. And I was like I don't know, 21 years old, something like that. Totally want to do this, totally want to fight. I had a restaurant already in Brazil. So I remember I sold my car and I came to United States just to, you know, just to give it a try. We ended up opening 4 schools in LA. So we had a beautiful time, like, you know, incredible students. And man, a lot of things happens. And I stayed since 1997 until 2002. And after I had to go back to Brazil to take care of family business, and I end up giving up fighting because I didn't had a sensei, a true guy that could help me out and give me a directions to be like a high level fighter athlete, actually, because I was teaching already. My career. I felt very bad because I didn't have anyone to trust as a coach to take me where I could go in my career. That's what I'm doing to Carlos right now. Like I've been there, I've done there, and I felt really lonely in my journey, even when I fought Pride against Satoshi Homa, and even when I go to Abu Dhabi, all those fights.
Okay, we'll get to that. So you're talking about Carlos Mota, a kid from Brazil that you brought up here. He's a 125-pounder. Dude, he's so fast. He's actually just fought in the UFC. So you're bringing somebody from the beginning and getting them all the way to the end, which is something that you struggled with in your career. I agree with that. So let's bring it back to 1998.
Hold on, but I have a question though, Francisco. You had exposure to such good guys, like even Hugo Duarte, Andre Pedinaris, you guys that you've mentioned here. Those guys couldn't even. Why didn't you gravitate towards those guys? What did you already feel like you were there?
Miguel, that's the thing. That's a very interesting question. Actually, it was a great question. People doesn't question themselves even today. What happened is I see some professional fighters, and they have like a jiu-jitsu coach, strength and conditioning coach, wrestling coach, boxing coach, Muay Thai coach. What happened when you have a lot of chiefs? Fighting pretty much is about ego. So that bothers me a lot, because you bring a jiu-jitsu guy to a camp, a jiu-jitsu coach, of course, he pretty much, I'm telling you, 99% of the human being, they want to pull the game to themselves. So that's I'm going to tell you a short story, very funny. I got a guy in Brazil. He's a jiu-jitsu coach, actually pretty good jiu-jitsu coach. I don't want to mention names right now, but he's an awesome coach, one of the best. And I said, you know what? Come help me with Carlos. Let's go you come with me in his corner. And then we fought a guy from André Pederneiras, 100% jiu-jitsu guy. And Carlos knocked the guy down and stayed in the guy's guard. And the coach says, come on, Carlos, pass his guard. I say, shut up. We're not passing nobody's guard. His nervous system, he does that every day. We're going to stay in his guard and ground and pound him. So that's the thing that I'm telling you. So, man, that's very interesting question, because like wrestlers, why wrestlers was so well succeed against Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Because they're not trying to do Jiu-Jitsu. They do something else. They get a good balance. They got a very good, strong core. They got an incredible positioning, not positions, positioning. So they make it very difficult for a Jiu-Jitsu guy get a submission sometimes, or sweep or reverse the game because of their balance. So, like as I said, I train in the Olympic team of Iran back in the days of wrestling. I went to Cal State Fullerton to train wrestling. I spent like in Cerritos College wrestling. I train a lot with Dan Henderson. Dan Henderson used to go to my school in Jiu-Jitsu, and I would go to Cerritos College when he was a coach. So we exchange a lot of information. So I felt that the way we need to be function is about MMA. Because Jiu-Jitsu guys, they think, oh, I'm good in Jiu-Jitsu, I'm going to be good in MMA. Has nothing to do with that. Jiu-Jitsu sport is one thing. Ground game for MMA is another thing. So that's why it's a misunderstanding. I see people getting 5, 10 coaches, but they don't talk to each other, and they don't want, actually, the boxing guy, they don't know about jiu-jitsu. They say, oh, knock that guy out. The wrestling, take him down. Jiu-jitsu guy, pass his guard. So it's, man, MMA is such a smart IQ modality that we need to put all your things together and be at least to know about all around the game.
Okay. Well, Miguel, you obviously started after this event, but you, Francisco, also participated in the first ADCC, March 20th, 1998. How do you get the invite?
And actually, I was training, you know, and one day I went to the Beverly Hills Jiu-Jitsu, Marcos Vinicius, for sure, Mike, you already know him. Yeah. And you know, that days I was like, you know, that day there had a light on you, man. I walk in, there's a lot of UFC fighters and Pride fighters. So I stayed in the middle, man. I just, you know what's a magical touch, man. I was in a blast day, and I tap all those guys 10 times in 5 minutes, each one of those guys. So the gossip went around. So I got invited for the ADCC, and as the first match was funny, I fought a Russian guy. He's like
you fought a Russian Sambo expert. I got Radzhab. I watched it. He's clearly a Sambo guy, but I couldn't get the last name.
Yeah, he's not only that, he was a 3-time world champion in wrestling.
Okay.
So the guy was a mountain, man. The guy was a rock. The guy was the strongest guy I ever see and I ever trained in my life. So there was a match, you know, I was much short. I'm 6 foot, you know, like I'm not a short guy. I'm average. But the guy, I look it up to see him. He may be like 40 pounds heavier than I was. He just like he slapped my head over here before we went to the mat, like, okay, kid, I'm just gonna smash you. So we did like if I'm not wrong, we did like a 2 or 3 overtime, and he never lost a match before, a professional match. Like that guy was a freak. I remember Tahanoun, the Sheikh of Abu Dhabi, he was paying that guy $1 million to teach wrestling Sambo over there. So he was a price of the house. Like that was the guy that smashed everyone. So that was my first match. So I end up winning that match, like a 2 or 3 overtime. Andre Pederneiras actually was in my corner, screaming all over the place like he always does. And it was beautiful, man. But I was really hurt inside. I was really tired. You know, and I went to the second match against the European judo champion.
So you got the second match, Firas Nakdali, like you said, European judo champion. That's your second bout. And how is the tournament up until this point? Like, is a lot of ego? Is it intense? Are people friendly?
Yeah, it was a lot of ego because I knew it that I was going to win the tournament because the quality of the tournament. I remember the Rico Rodriguez, I guess. Yeah, Rico. He fought in the UFC. Yeah, he was a purple belt, and he already know that I challenged his senseis, the Machado family. I challenged them all. I will tell another story funny. With John Moreira, will tell that even better than I do. You know, there are some episodes very funny back in the days. I was a kind of wild kid, you know, back in the days. I like to do it. I like to talk, but I like to do it. So I end up fighting against the judo guy. I make like a lot of points and I submit him. And then I went to the finals. But after that match, because of the Russian guy, I was throwing up a lot of blood. I was kind of hurt inside, a rib, you know. So they took me to the doctor, to the hospital. And then I said, no, guys, I'm good to go. I can fight the finals. You'll be against Rico Rodriguez. That will be the easiest match of the whole tournament for me, you know. and they didn't let me fight because of the blood. You know, stuff. You know, like they had like a boat ride for the champions. She called me to do that, and I didn't go, man. I was so mad. You know, I said I can fight. I'm just, you know, the blood is out already. You know, I recompose. I'm reset. I'm ready to go to fight a final, but they didn't let me.
Who was your roommate? Do you remember?
Oh, Rodrigo Medeiros. Rodrigo Medeiros. You know who Rodrigo?
Yeah. It's very interesting.
Yeah, pretty good jiu-jitsu guy from Carlos Gracie.
Those first few years of the ADCC tournaments, it's like the Wild West. Sometimes you don't even like the person you're rooming with. Sometimes it's your future opponent. It's just, who knows?
True, man. But Rodrigo was a great guy. He's lighter. He was, I guess, 155 back in the days. I was 205. So Rodrigo was a nice guy. I think he ended up doing pretty good. I'm not remember if he won, but he was my roommate, good friend. We talk sometimes. He's a great guy. But everything else was good, you know. I was just really sad because I could fight. I was hurt, but I could fight. So because back in the days, the fighting game in those countries was kind of, you know, on and off. The Sheik could not had a problem, you know, just was crazy.
Okay. That is your first entry into the world stage. And at this point, the hype around your name, like Grappling Magazine, is all over you. Like they're constantly doing articles, you're showing techniques, but you're also being kind of, I'm not going to say aggressive. You would say this is the stuff the Gracies don't teach you. And then you would do a technique like, you know, that was kind of like your gimmick. Like you enjoyed kind of showing them up.
Man, you are a true detective, Mike. I'm fucking surprised, bro. Yeah, that's a true story.
So one of it, I think it was a 2001 May issue of Grappling Magazine. The article was called Power Jiu-Jitsu. And it was like Franco Colombo and yourself. And you had demonstrated a Granby style Americana into like an arm block from the turtle position. And it was like mind blowing for the time. And you were like, well, this is what you're supposed to be doing.
Got it.
I mean, what do you think? Why do you think that the initial Brazilians coming to the United States would hold back on technique for the American students?
Mike, to tell you the truth, before I thought about that, I feel like they keep hiding. But in those days, I see they're not hiding. They're just not capable, you know? They know what they're being taught, but they didn't go through it and follow different techniques. They you know, like religion, Jiu-Jitsu, Gracie or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is pretty much like a religion. I'm not about that, man. I'm open up. The difference about my ground game, even like in those days, this week I've been teaching here the American top team in Las Vegas. All those black belts, they freaking out because they said, man, not even one day of your techniques. I never seen that before. What was that? And I said, it's a group of knowledge between George Mehdi, Sambo, wrestling, Jiu-Jitsu. So I put it together and I transform as a system. Like there is a guy, Todd Hester. He was an editor-chief of Grappling Magazine, and he pretty like he loved jiu-jitsu. And then when I start doing all the techniques that I used, and that is my base program, they call 5 points. There is so much pressure in those points, And they say, man, how you end up doing this? So that this is a mix of everything. I'm not just a blind guy with a religion. They said, oh, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is like bullshit. For me, it's a bullshit. You know, you got to go to the mat and prove to myself. So it's 100% bullshit. You know, I don't trust that shit. That's all you got. So just come and try it. You know, come and try it. And that's it. You know, like for me, it's a big, what can I say, man? You just got to be, your mind got to be open to get more knowledge. Even like yesterday when I was teaching the class, I said, guys, I feel like I'm a white belt. I still have so much to learn. You know, I can see a blue belt movement and I can improve that. So that blue belt was teaching me in that time. You know, so I'm open to that. The problem with people, they reach the black belt and think this is the end. Now I'm a master. Now I'm a sensei. The ego, it's blocking themselves to evolution, to improve themselves. So I'm still open to learn most possible that I can.
Okay. So Todd Hester obviously went on to Bodyguard magazine. I think he still writes today after that, but he started with grappling. But your first fight, January 20th, 1999, you fought an IVC 8 against Jason Godsu. Do you remember that fight?
Yeah. It was a funny fight. Yeah.
Well,
it was crazy and funny.
Well, it was very interesting. I don't feel like giving up the surprise. Would you mind telling everybody what may have taken place?
Oh, definitely. The thing was, I was by myself. To tell you the truth, I had no corner. I had no coaches. I went by myself. That's it. Went there to the hotel, to the press conference. I see Jay Godse with Mark, Kevin Hammond, all the big names.
For Hammer House.
And I was by myself. Yeah. I was by myself, and I see that guy give me a look at the lunchtime, trying to provoke me, you know, and I was a wild guy, man. I was a wild kid back in the days. So I say, you know what? I'm going to make him swallow everything with their eye contact, with the try to, you know, provoke me. So that's why when I knock him down, I guess with a left hook, he went fall out of the ring. His legs end up
in the ropes, tangled in the ropes.
Yeah, tangled in the ropes. I pulled the ropes. I got in. I kept hitting on him. And I remember the referee, he choked me out. I passed out with the rear naked choke.
So Sergio Bonarelli's the referee. He's telling Francisco to stop. Francisco really wasn't stopping. And like, even though he wasn't like throwing a lot of punches, he wasn't giving up positions. Like, no. Let this guy fall. Let him fall to the ground. Yeah. So Bonarelli, you can see you almost passed completely out, but you lost consciousness for a split section.
Very true. Joke. Very true, man. I've been tapped by the referee. Can you believe that?
You tapped the referee out.
Won the
match. You tap out to the referee.
Man, you even know details, bro. Unbelievable. Yes, I tapped out, man. I was out.
So, Jason Godse. Go ahead, Miguel.
Francisco, I was actually there. I was at that fight, and when this guy says he was intense, I'm talking about. Miguel? Yeah, I was there with some of the American team. I believe Henry Matamoros fought on that card, so I was with him.
Oh, nice, Miguel.
So, and this guy was like, you know, when they prepare a bull, and the bull is like like this is Francisco Bueno, and Jason was like, you know, trying to stay calm in his style, but it's if he made a face at you, that was a face that went wrong because you gave it right back to him, and he was very intimidated. He told me, he actually asked me, he said, what am I going to do with this guy? I said, you got to play your game, but you got into his head real good.
Yeah, that's good. That's good to know, Miguel. And I'm glad you're there, man. We're here back again together. That's beautiful, man.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. We talked afterwards because you went to Pride, but I'll let Mike take us there.
All right. So
All right.
Frederico Lipenda was the promoter for that event.
No, that was Bottarelli.
No, Borelli.
Okay. Oh, you know what? WVC was Lipenda then. Okay.
Yes, true.
Okay.
I fought for the belt. Yeah, I fought for the belt.
Let's just say Frederico Lipenda as a promoter, how was it?
Man, Lipenda is one of the guys that I can tell, like, he's the one, he's the guilty one to MMA gets in this level. That guy is, man, he's incredible promoter. He know how to do things. You know, he was a young guy back in the days with a lot of, you know, desire to grow as a producer, as a promoter, as a human being. He's a great guy. You know, he was an incredible business guy. You know, he's done like a beautiful shows as a WVC.
Yeah.
You know, all of this back in the days was the beginning of the sport, and he helped. Not only help, man, he done it. You know, he one of the guys that I can call as a guilty one to be where we at right now.
He belongs in the Hall of Fame, in my opinion.
Yes, he belongs in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
you're right.
Absolutely.
His shows were clearly the biggest ones in the world at the time. I mean, keep in mind, he went and did shows in Israel. You know, he went and did shows in Ukraine. I mean, this
Jamaica.
guy in the 90s.
Exactly. That's the point. Man, he pushed us. He pushed the business. He pushed the MMA in such a higher level. He spread the MMA in the world. He produced, he promote. Like, man, he was a, you know, incredible guy. No words for him.
One of the guys that heavily involved with the Brazilian top team as well, still involved politically, did shows all over the world, probably lost an absolute fortune doing so, but raised the level of the sport without question. Okay, so my second question about Lipenda, can I get one more in, Miguel, or do you want to jump in?
Yeah.
Okay, so my second question about Lipenda, in the documentary Rites of Passage, it's a Bobby Razik film. I've watched it a few times. He had to go into the crowd and announce to them that you would not be on the card due to the fact that a sponsor didn't come through, even though the entire event was really pushing your name. And, you know, these things happen, especially back then. That's not me trying to say anything negative about him, but it's a fact that this took place. So would you walk us through your version of those events?
Oh, yeah, that's true. We went over there. You know, there was a fight as a belt lineup for me. And I had back in the days, I had like a wrestler, a wrestling coach from America, a conditioning training from America. So I need to pay off those guys too. So we agree with a number, if I'm not wrong, was $60,000, I guess. So in the end of the day, I guess the day of the fight, or the day one day before the fight over there, we were over there like everything ready. I was best shape of my life, you know, but end up something happened with the sponsor. He didn't came through. So I say, you know what? I'm gonna try to be professional. There was something that I was never was. I was always the type of guy, you know what? I don't care. I just go and fight. I just don't care. I don't care about the money. I don't care about the date, the time, where, the low. I don't care. So at that time, I looked to my guys. We talk between me, the wrestling coach, and the conditioning and strength training coach. And he said, you know what? If there's money not there, I'm not going to jump in. And ended up later that I fought for the belt, and I'll be paid exactly what Frederico promised me. Everything was being taken care. Everything was ready. So when I fought for the belt or WVC, against, I guess, Mariano. So everything was being taken care of.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. But Miguel, Francisco was omitted from a story of a previous interview that we did that we've got to shed light on. We had Antonio McKee on, which is one of the craziest interviews we've ever done, like bar none, batshit crazy. And he talked about learning that Brazilian stuff and showing up over at one of their gyms with a gun and kind of making sure that they taught me what it is that they knew. Were you on the receiving end of Antonio McKee's little entry into the jiu-jitsu world?
Yes. Yeah, I don't know what Antonio told me, but actually we have a mutual friend. That was a funny day, Mike. I was teaching a class. I was giving my back to the door of my gym in LA, and I see all my guys. Actually was a gi class, and I see all my guys looking to the door. When I look over my shoulder, there was four guys for wrestling shoes on my mat, and I say, "What you doing here, bro? You crazy?" "Oh, we want to try, want to test it." So you know what? I took my gi off, and I roll with Antonio and all those guys too. So, and then you better ask him what happened.
Oh, he said he got tapped. He said he definitely got tapped, but it opened up doorways in regards to like his understanding of what jiu-jitsu was. And it left such an impression on him that actually one of your black belts, Cobb Whitehorse, was the body shop jiu-jitsu instructor from about 2004 to 2011. I can't even imagine what it'd be like working day in and day out with Antonio McKee.
Antonio is a funny guy, man. He's crazy, you know. He gets a lot of ego. Even he kept training over there. He getting tapped, man, 100 times in 5 minutes. You know, that's a true story. You know, like and he couldn't understand. Man, he was like punching the mats, like, how can you do that to me, man? I can, you know, he was very what is the word? Man, I'm training for Royce Gracie. He didn't call me. I come here and you make me tap 10 times in 5 minutes. I don't understand that shit. I'm fucking, like, he was going crazy, man, of that, you know, like, you know. Actually, I have a grappling magazine interview Antonio McKee, and he mentioned that episode, you know, like I still have it, actually, the magazine.
He mentioned us. He mentioned us that he had a gun in his gym bag just in case there was any issues. I believe him. Yeah, I don't think he's lying.
Hey, Mike, he was a good wrestler. Antonio was a good wrestler. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He was a good wrestler, but like I said, and actually a very strong guy for his weight, you know. But the ego, it was there, bro. He was a funny guy. We talk about Antonio even those days, man, with this guy that actually we live in the same condominium here in Las Vegas. He kept working with Antonio. You know, he was my student like 25 years ago, and now he's back. He's in Vegas also. So and he's still very good friends of Antonio and AJ, his son. And he kept telling AJ, man, you gotta meet Francisco Bueno. You gotta train with that guy, you know. And even John Jones, he's a friend of John Jones, and he said, man, you gotta train with Chico. You're gonna see something different. He never felt it before. And John Jones said, oh man, you guys can come to, I guess, Albuquerque, something like that. New Mexico, I guess. And I said, no, I'm not leaving Las Vegas. I got my family over here. So if he wants to come and train, enjoy, and then have some fun, we're ready. But
I'd be careful with the fun part with John Jones. But go ahead. Sorry.
I believe it. I
got a quick question for you. Now, I want to take us back to Brazil in the IVC, because this was your first fight. So, and obviously, the Brazilians, like all the guys you know, from what was the name of the magazine and that was down there?
Tatame.
Yeah, Tatame, and all that crew. They all were very much looking for you, for your debut. And then there's a guy that's one of those Lapenda-like figures that was there, Jorge Guimarães. And George Guimarães, he was a TV
Jorge
guy.
Guimarães. Jorge
Yeah,
Guimarães.
You'll say it, man. Now, did he manage you to get the Pride? Because I think that's what he was doing in those days.
No. Who managed me to go to the Pride after that fight with Marco Jara, the guy who got killed in Brazil? You know, the one he took me to Rickson Gracie house.
Okay.
You know, so he was my manager back in the days, and also with Botha.
Okay.
Botha became my manager. He the one took me to Pride. You know, like that's the truth.
Okay.
So Pride, we opened up the we opened up that door. So on April 29th, 1999, Pride 5, Satoshi Hamna is your opponent. He's a veteran of 14 fights, 7-5-2 in Japan. If you follow this podcast, 7-5-2 in Japan is a savage record. You know, they don't cater to anybody over there. They try to get everybody beat. Would you mind walking us through the fight? You were a little bit tentative in this one, initially anyway.
Yeah, Mike, what happened is like this, man. I was like, I feel like in those days right now, I feel like I felt it, and I feel so much lack of direction, so much lack of a head coach, of a good person, a good mentor. They'll take me over things. They'll prepare my psychology, emotional, to be in a fight. So there was a big lack of my career. I didn't have any mentor. I didn't have any coach. You just have like a guy for strength training that I took with me to Pride. So it was kind of off for me. I was type, I just, let's go and fight. And Miguel, just to make a point, IVC wasn't my first fight. It was my first, we call big fight, big promotion.
Your first recorded fight. Okay.
So you actually fought, you moved to the States, you fought in those underground San Pedro fights, and then went back to Brazil to do the IVC. That's crazy. Perfect. And then, so talk about, and then obviously you had some fights in Brazil that were a lower level also. Okay. So
wait, hold up, Miguel. So those fights that you fought in the LA, the underground fights, were those like the Cobra Fighting Federation, or was it the above ground fighting, or was it kind of what was it, the Punishment series? What was Tito Ortiz doing? The Hitman fight series. Was it any of those?
It's a street fight. So like it looks like a kind of a garage or bar, something weird. And we go over there, put your name, and just go and fight. I fought 2 times in one night over there. I remember it was a Friday, one of the Friday. I never forget about that. So a lot of guys, different guys, like street fighters, jiu-jitsu guys, some they used to show up, wrestlers. So it was a fun time. I don't remember the promoter guy, but I remember they pay like $200, for a fight. You just go in.
Ted Williams. Sorry, Ted Williams.
Yeah. Oh no, Ted Williams. I remember Ted. Yeah, was such a nice guy, funny guy.
Okay. Well, here, let's go back to Japan. Satoshi Hamna, you knock him out after about 4 or 5 minutes. You said your issue is that you didn't have a leader. Like even Muhammad Ali had a trainer. Like to really become a world champion, you have to have a trainer. You've got to listen to somebody.
Yeah, the thing is the lack of direction when you're not 100% ready in your mindset. Something's gonna lack. If you don't have a good coach. If you I was a kid, in my entire career, I didn't have anyone to trust. I go to the boxing coaches. They wanted me to do boxing, of course. Like So it's kind of, that's why I centralize everything right now as a coach. For example, I do the strength and conditioning for Carlos. He's everything, man, pretty much, like boxing, jiu-jitsu, wrestling. We get some bodies and just go for it. But back in the days, I didn't have that. So I entered Japan, you know, what can I say, man? To brawl and to fight. I wasn't ready as a tactical fighter. You know, just I was going up there and to see what's up and what's gonna happen. So no strategy, no directions. It was sad, you know. It's still sad for me. Was a lack of direction. Was a lack of coach.
It's like missed opportunities.
Yeah.
Very true, Miguel. Very true, man. Very true.
So going into you win that with a knockout. They put you in Pride 8 against Igor Vovchanchyn, November 21st, 1999. Not an easy fight to watch as a fan, and it's your first loss.
Yes.
Yeah, not an easy thing to deal with. Something important, but not an easy thing to deal with. And when it's done in that fashion, it's got to make it even more difficult.
You got to a point, Mike. That's why you're such a good at what you do. You know, you put him in the corner right now, and that's a true story. If you don't have directions, if you don't have a good coach, if you don't have a mentor, and you get a loss, because I wasn't used to lose, not even a sparring section. You know, back in the days, that was very rare. Even a jiu-jitsu guy make me a point or advantage in just a roll, a simple roll. I wasn't used to get, man, I don't remember how long I don't tap out in the ground game. Mm-hmm. So for me, was devastating. After that loss, emotionally, I was ruined. I went up to I was ashamed of myself. You know, my ego was huge. I couldn't digest that loss, you know, and I can tell that was that was the end of my career as an athlete.
Really?
Yes, that's a true story. I never mentioned that before, but as a coach right now, I understand how much is important to have someone to give you directions, to prepare you emotionally in a mindset to whatever happens, it happens. For me as an athlete, what I used to do day by day in my journey, I'm telling you, Mike, that's not I'm telling you, not as a lack of humbleness, but when I roll with people, they don't even get advantage of me. Tapping me out, I don't even remember when the last time I tap out, you know? So for me, that loss was such a heavy in my emotional body, in my emotional backpack, that I feel like I weighed 1,000 pounds, you know? So like I said, man, if you don't have a good mentor and direction, you're going to end up in losing yourself. I lost for myself.
So Frederico, losing is a part of the game. Like, if you watch Jorge Masvidal, obviously you saw the Kamaru Usman loss, and right away he's on TV going, hey, man, he got me with the move that I actually like. Good on him. But previous to that, he got caught in an inverted triangle by Toby Amada that went viral. And this is before Jorge was Jorge. And he was giving interviews right after that too, going, hey, man, good game. He got me. It is what it is. I'd like to run that one back, but hey, enjoy it. It's not going to happen again. But that mindset, you need somebody on top of you to kind of get you there. And when you don't, it's got to be devastating.
Perfect, Mike. I remember when Randy Couture tapped out for Anson Minoue, he get out of the ring and said, shit happens. But for me, in my career, you got to, please, guys, try to understand and take this in the right way. But since I became a master, a sensei, when I was a blue belt. I was talking to a guy today at the gym, and he knows about jiu-jitsu, and knows about Brazil. He's telling me, man, even like the journalists in Brazil right now, when they go and do the announcement for Carlos going to the fight, he said, oh, man, that's the best grappler I've ever seen in my life. Right there behind Carlos, that's Francisco Bueno. What happened in my career, Mike, was good and sad at the same time, because I lost so many opportunities to be in a place that I could be as a fighter, as an athlete. But, you know, like I remember since I was a blue belt, not even one black belt wants to roll with me when I was a blue belt and a kid, because I make all the black belts step when I was a blue belt. You know, and if you ask around in Brazil,
no, wait,
everyone will tell you that.
Let me bring this one home. So essentially, we talked about Todd Hester being the person that edited Grappling Magazine, which was kind of like the Bible of grappling. The amount of respect that the magazine and love had for Francisco Bueno, it was almost impossible for you to get fights because nobody wanted to get into the ring with you. Like, it was like a Sage Northcutt type hype, except the train was real. I mean, it was, yeah, very, very frightening, you know, for the people that you were about to face.
But, you know, that's nice to have that kind of recognition. It's very good. But like you said, without like somebody that you respect, then that all just feeds your ego.
Exactly, Miguel. That's the point. And I'm so sad about that because I was a kid. Miguel, listen, people talk even today in Brazil, like Minotauro, those guys, they know. Like when I go to the gym with my gi, all the guys take the gi off. It said, oh, I'm tired, I'm not going to roll with you. That happened since I was a blue belt. Miguel, I was a blue belt, tapping out 10 times a black belt in 5 minutes. So that happened in my career. There's so much pressure and not an emotional and mindset or work to keep as a kid to make me go to a higher level. And then I get lost on my track. I didn't trust no one. Nobody wants to train with me. It's funny because just now, like 2 hours ago, Mike, I was at the gym, and I just got a guy over there that trains jiu-jitsu, and he knows, surprised me because I'm not a well-known guy, but he knows me. He said, man, you're a legend, man. I know all about you. Like, man, people didn't want to train with you. You know, I had a hard time to roll, just to roll with people. In LA, when I opened up my gym, I just roll with my students, because when I go to someplace else, people didn't want to roll with me. One time I went to Beverly Hills Jiu-Jitsu. There's a lot of guys over there from UFC and Pride, and I stay in the middle. I train with all the 12 guys. I was in the middle and tapping like 10, 20 times each one. So yeah, it was hard for me because of my ego here, what I accomplished as a kid in the gym. I didn't have the directions or the coach or the mentor to say, hey, kid, slow down. Let's take it step by step. Let's work on this, on that. Don't take this fight. That was a wrong pick. I couldn't fight Igor Vovchanchyn. I wasn't ready at that time. And the manager and the promoters came to, oh, Chico, you're ready, you're the best, go, go. I didn't have any directions. I was, I felt sorry. But at the same time, it made me who I am today as a coach, You
correct the mistakes. You just got to correct them.
Exactly.
That's the perfect example. A fighter, he's bleeding in the corner. Round 5 is about to start. The doctor asks him, you want to fight? He always says yes. If somebody else needs to make that decision, it's interesting. Now, you weren't ready for Igor Vovchanchyn. You walked into that fight thinking you were going to beat him?
You had to.
Exactly right. That's the point. And I asked, says, I don't care how much they're gonna pay me. I'm gonna beat the crap that midget. I told them that back in the days, that fat midget. I'm just gonna kill that fat midget. So I was, man, hey kid, relax, take your time. Let's
We'll get
promote
there.
that fight. Let's take you to another level. Let's train even harder. Let's prepare you for the punches. You know, so it just no directions at all.
Miguel, let me give you another example of just how friggin' out of his mind he was at this time. Did you ever walk over to Wildcard Boxing and demand to spar with James Toney?
How do you know that, man? That sparring happened, and then we almost ended up fighting. I want to take my gloves off and beat the crap out of him. I went up over there. I said, I want to box that motherfucker, you know? And I boxed like a Mexican guy, went wild, and the guy keeps talking outside and say, come on, you motherfucker, let's spar. So that's a true, man, you're a real detective. You're the best in the game, Mike. How do you know that fucking name, man? Unbelievable.
James Toney is one of the grimiest, filthiest boxers, and I say that with the utmost respect because he's one of my childhood heroes. And to walk over to Wildcard and demand to spar with him, it takes a certain type of individual to do that. I am not that person.
Mike, I did the same thing with Francois Botha. I don't know if you remember the guy.
Of course, from Africa. Yeah, South Africa.
Yeah,
the White Buffalo.
Africa. And man, I'm telling you, it was a great sparring. Actually, we did like 6 rounds. We went off to each other, you know? And after that, Michael Grant was another heavyweight that I spar. And then another guy was Lemon Brewster. He's not very well known, but he's an amazing boxer.
Of course, Lemon Brewster's very good. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I'll take you back to another one here. Did you fight in the 1996 Jiu-Jitsu World Championship in the finals?
Miguel, I don't remember. Man, I fought so many tournaments in Jiu-Jitsu back in the days, man.
I'm getting word here that you may have faced Ricardo Liborio in a final.
Oh my God, that was yeah. Let me tell you this. I was a very light guy. You guys can ask that for André Pederneiras. I was a black belt. He gave me the black belt, and then I had a problem with my knee. I have like a bacteria mat, they call it Staphylococcus. You know, I had a very bad surgery. I haven't trained for a while. And I was a light guy. I was like a one back at that time. I was a one, maybe 165, 165. And then André said, Chico, you know what? I'm gonna put you in the heavyweight because I want you to fight Liborio. So I cleaned it up. That was my first Brazilian tournament as a black belt. The first one. I finished every fight. I end up in the finals with Liborio. And I was like, at least, I would say 15 kilos, no more. 20 kilos, pretty much lighter than him. So we end up, he finished everybody in the first 5 seconds. So André and everybody else sees it. I won that fight. You know, I reversed the guy. You know, I go to his neck. He get out of the ring. André was screaming. The final point was 4 against 2, but I did all the submissions attempt, and the referee didn't put in my account like 6 points of reversing. So that was a crazy match. That was a crazy match.
Liborio, people would argue.
You guys unbelievable, man. You guys know about everything. You guys know more than my life than I do, man. Unbelievable.
So Liborio is highly regarded jiu-jitsu practitioner. People will say he didn't perform up to his ability. Meanwhile, the guy's a world champion. Like they literally say he's the greatest person they've ever been on the mat with, period, bar none, especially when he's taken 6 months off and came back to the gym. That's when he's his most dangerous. Yeah.
Yes.
He's one of those guys.
Was an incredible match. It was I wish I could have that video of that fight. The other day I met André Pederneiras. We were talking about that fight, and André said, Chico, you won that fight, man. You're the only one that beat that guy really well. And the guy was back in the days was the hypest. He was like
Savage.
magician in jiu-jitsu, you know. So
Yeah,
it was a
savage.
beautiful match. It was a beautiful match. It was a final. It was a final match.
Mhm.
Actually, I have a picture. I can send you later, Mike. I have and Miguel, I send it to you guys, a picture in the podium of that fight.
Oh, awesome.
Cool. All right,
Yeah.
let me just kind of take it back just a little bit. The UFC 1 referees were Joao Alberto Barreto and Helio Vigio. What was their reputation like in Brazil?
What do you mean? Like, what do you mean? Like reputation about?
They brought them from Brazil to referee UFC 1. So what were they like on the mats? Did you ever roll with them? What was their reputation?
Yeah, I went to João Alberto Barreto school. I roll with his black belts. Back in the days, I was a purple belt. But I was insane purple belt. As I said, like I was a blue belt, and I was tapping all the black belts 5, 10 times. So yeah, man, he's totally legit. You know, the guy, he's been with the Gracies for such a long time. You know, very legit guy, very respectful sensei. Actually, I didn't even remember that they were UFC referees, but you're right. That I remember now. You told me. I remember that stuff. That was amazing, man. You know, back in the days, people didn't know jiu-jitsu. So for us, it's such an easy thing, you know. Royce has a blast, man, you know, because he was sucking jiu-jitsu, you know, a horrible jiu-jitsu guy, you know, and he ended up winning the UFC, you know, back in the days. Of course, people didn't know jiu-jitsu, but he was sucked. He always been sucked, you know, like, and he was a blast, man. That was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, another Hall of Famer, Royce Gracie. All right, so you take a year and a half off. Do you have visa issues at the United States at this point? Because I know right around this time, right after the Igor fight, your gym closed. Did you get turned around at the airport, or what happened?
No. Actually, after I fought Igor, I was, what can I say, man? I lost my track. Okay. Not that if I had one before. You know, I was like, as I said, man, I was done everything by myself in my life. You know, I didn't have a dad in my life, a father. So,
wow.
Yeah, I was raised by my mom. You know, my family was just me and my mom. So I was like a kid lost in the world, like gets an incredible talent on the ground and is standing up also, like a boxing and wrestling. But like as I said, Mike and Miguel, I was like no directions at all. I couldn't digest emotionally that loss for Igor, so I end up pretty much
disconnected. Yeah, you
disconnected. Yeah, that's the word. Disconnected to myself, and I didn't trust myself anymore as a fighter after that fight. I will be very open and transparent with you guys. I was hurt, man, emotionally hurt, because like
it happens.
Yeah, but Mike, remember, for me as a kid, I never pretty much lost a sparring session. So for me to digest a loss like that was the end of the world for me. That was it for me, man. And after that, I fought for the belt in WVC. I ended up winning that belt.
Year and a half later. Yeah, so a year and a half later. And you know, you had mentioned not having a father growing up or a mentor. A father and a mentor would have made you go back to the gym like later on the next week. And no. Deal with it. But that's why you're here as a coach. That is what you're doing. So
Mike, sorry to interrupt you. Just to add on that, man, I got in my room depressed. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep after that loss. My ego was so hurt. I was devastated, man. Man, I'm telling you, for me, I didn't know when I'm gonna tell you, it's like this. Not even a half guard, people take him as sparring. So to lose like that, I lost my track.
Now, did you a personal question? Did you obviously depression, but did you turn to drugs or alcohol? Did you have to fight that?
No, 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 no. I've never done
Good for
drugs
you.
in my life. Never. Never, Miguel. I was very educated from my mom, you know, and I have I believe in God a lot, you know. I was connected with God. I was just disconnected with myself, you know, because it was just pure ego, you know, just pure I was a weak mentally. I was a weak person emotionally, you know, and I was a weak uh, emotional athlete. I was very weak because after the loss, I lost my life, you know?
Yeah. Your
What's crazy is
body.
behind the scenes, everybody is afraid of him. Like, for sure. Like, your reputation, I'm not going to say ego, but your reputation, the Brazilians wanted nothing to do with you. And the Americans would look at the Brazilians going, wait a minute. If the people that we're having issues with want no part of that guy, what does that tell us? You were in a real strange situation, to be honest with you.
Very true, Mike. Very true, man. And then I have I have no school because when I came here, André Pedonero said, "Oh man, come on, you're not gonna survive in America. You're from Brazil. Bullshit, you're going. You cannot leave the school. You won't take a month. You're gonna coming back." Man, after a year, he called me. Oh, can you put our name together in the wall? I said, no. You didn't trust me, bro. You're supposed to be my sensei. Fuck you. I'm not putting your name under my name over there at the wall. So we had an issue, me and Andre. We stopped talking. So that's another loss for me as a mentor, because part of my journey, of course, since a white belt to a black belt, I've been with Andre, you know. So after I got into Mehdi, George Mehdi, we had a little problem, and then we had this problem, and then we stopped talking. So I was by myself in this fighting world, you know. I was trying to reinvent myself. I get my car, jump into my car, go to Wild Card looking for sparring, go to Watts, Compton, the boxing really dirty gyms. I go to Cerritos College, go call State Fullerton to seek some wrestling. And then Jiu-Jitsu I do to my students. And, you know, I was a kid, you know, like I'm talking about 22 years old. People call me sensei and master. You cannot do that to a kid, you know, but I did it to myself. That's the only way that I could handle myself and try to compensate the lack of a father and the lack of a mentor. So I feel that, you know, that's why maybe right now I'm so close to Carlos. He called me dad. You know, I try to compensate that in this game for him right now and for me.
Okay. Were you in the gym when Frank Shamrock and Health Gracie rolled?
No.
Okay, so
No.
when Frank Shamrock allegedly ripped the knee out of Health Gracie in a grappling match?
No, I wasn't there. There's another story that was really funny. A lot of guys, there is me, Walid Ismail, you guys already know Walid.
Of course.
Tito Ortiz, Vander Braga. You must know Vander Braga.
Of course.
You got to ask him that. Man, I became Vander idol because of that. Because I was warming up. There's Fabiano Iha. Remember Fabiano Iha? Huntington Beach?
Yeah.
Yes. So we at their gym, and then Tito was mashing Vander. Vander was a little kid, you know. And I remember there's Vladimir Klitschko over there too.
No, you're talking about
then
Vladimir Matyushenko.
Matyushenko, yeah, Matyushenko. That's the guy, the wrestler,
yes.
The world champion. Yeah. So, man, I'm gonna tell you guys that one. That was a famous one too. And Tito, he went to the cage with Vander and Vali on the ground, showing people some techniques on the mats. And I see Tito beat him up bad. And I said, hey, you better get someone to your own size. Stop that bullshit and go with me. Mike and Miguel, listen, I went up with Tito. He looks like a 2-year-old kid in my hand. I just murder him. I touch him, he tap. I touch him, he tap. I take him down, pass. He was crying, man. He was so impressed. Price. Man, that people freak out. Like a Vander Braga was so happy, man. Actually, he put in the Twitter, I guess, the other day or Instagram. I'm not a social media guy either, but man, I remember that day. But not with a Shamrock and Ralph Gracie. I wasn't there.
Okay.
I wasn't there.
Do you remember getting your first student in the United States when you opened up your gym, Luis Trasvina? He's your first student here in the United States.
I don't remember that.
He's your first student here in the United States. Okay, yeah, he wrote something real nice about you online. About a lot of respect that he had for you. But let's talk about your comeback. You have to climb that hill of Vovchanchyn, and Pride doesn't help because they're plastering it over every highlight reel. And you fight Mario Mendoza, who is he didn't take some steroids. He took all of the steroids. He's huge. That's your comeback fight.
Yes. And Mike and Miguel, to tell you guys the truth, when that guy arrived, and I talked to La Penda and all those guys, Minotauro, saw him hitting the pads and the mitts, said, Chico, man, that is not a good fight to come back after a year and a half. You know, we know like all your guns, and you know what, man, forget about that. And I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I try it. I go to La Penda and say, La Penda, please put me against the fat karate guy over there. There's a karate guy, you know. I forgot his name, you know. Patriotti, something like that, you know. He's an American guy. He fought the other Brazilian guy, Sucata.
Okay.
And then I said, please, man, change me, man. Give me the fat karate guy and put this monster against Sucata. Sucata was having they said, no, man, this is the main event. You got to go through this. And all the people, when the day of the fight, the guy was warming up. Man, he stopped every fighters, man. He hit the pads. Every kick he did it to the pads, his trainer was flying all over the place. So Andre Pederneiras came to me and said, Chico, fuck, man, it's insane. Can you hear right now? I was in the locker room, the dressing room. The guy was hitting the pads like in the other side, other locker room. But I kept hearing the kicks. Said, man, the kid kicked like a mule. So it was crazy day.
Well, you get the takedown, a couple bad scrambles, you land the rear naked choke, and you take another extended period off before you fight in London against Alex Travalier.
Yes.
You're not as active as everybody wants you to be.
Mike, it was a really tough for me. Like, as I said, I did my whole program of training. I trained with my students. I had to teach class. You know, like I was by myself in LA. You know, I was running with my car, trying to pay the bills, going to the boxing gyms and wrestling programs to try to fit me in. And no coaches, no mentor. And then, you know, was just very lonely for me, you know, like my life before, you know, like a lack of a dad, you know, a lack of support, emotional support. I was a poor and weak mentally, you know, very, very, very poor and weak and lonely kid mentally. So that's why I wish every fighter get that, you know, the mentor, the coach, and respect and be grateful for the coach to be on their side, you know. But for me, it was crazy, man. I drove around, go into some boxing gym, put my gloves and say, I want to spar. like a wild card and all that, all those places that I went to, I did by myself, that's just how far that I could do it. I wish that I had like, directions to go further,
Yeah, it's crazy. You talk about things like your body, the age, all your training, the age, but your emotional age, you could be stuck at about 15 years old, and you're not ready for anything.
Miguel, 8 years old.
That's very insightful.
I keep saying, man, it was tough on me. Sometimes I always talk to my wife, and even not my kid, but I let him know what is not having a dad. I was 8 years old and my dad was gone. I haven't talked to him, and my mom was dying of cancer when I was 8. I was just so afraid of life because people came to me and said, Francisco, what's going to be in your life? You don't have a dad. Now your mom is dying. So what are you going to do in your life? And then I was freaking out. So I took it as a granted. I put that into my emotional luggage, and that hurt me a lot in my life. I was very sad and no direction. And then all I could do is sell my car and try to come and train in the United States, because in Brazil, people didn't want to train with me. I had that problem, the lack of training too. So I searched my path, I did whatever I could do it. If I regret of something, of course I am. But now I became this man, this coach that I try to do the best as I can. And then, it's been working out so far.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That, I lined Francisco up with Motaz. He needed 2 fights. He went out to Mason City, Iowa on his own dime, fought for free in order. I'm not going to say you fought for free. You paid Motaz to get there, transportation, food, everything, in order that Motaz had an opportunity, something that you yourself may not have had. You provided him. And the guys from Mason City, they said, well, Francisco came. He's insisting on teaching a seminar. We'll get everybody together. Cool, real nice guy. He says he's doing it for free, so you continue to give. And Mike Estes over there, all he does is like, that entire area is like, wait a minute, what's happening with this Francisco Bueno guy? They flipped their affiliation. They're with you. They said flat out, they've never seen anything like this. And this is a guy that's been around a long time. He's got a 25-year plus experience in the fight world. And he said he's never seen anything like Francisco Bueno. Called me up like 2 weeks ago to personally thank me for even connecting you two. Yeah.
Yes, you're the guy that support us too to find that fight. We're crazy about that. But before that, Mike, there's more to happen and to talk about it. Carlos' beginning of career, I find Carlos in the streets, has no food, no place to stay. I was building a gym in the ghetto in Brazil. So I see that kid, the eyes, a lot of hungry, no dad ever, never had a dad. His mom died when he was 5 years old, and his mom died as a cancer, and Carlos was 5 years old. She died with him in her lap, So the lack of dad with Carlos and the mother with the cancer is very similar to my history. So I get touched in my heart. I start training that kid. I got emotional just to talk about it right now,
Yeah.
And it was a beautiful journey, The kid has no place to stay. And we trust the program, we trust everything, man, the path, and I start training the kid. And we got him a fight against Andrea guys, a very, very good kid. And Carlos just run through that guy. And his second fight was in England against a guy, I guess, a 12-1 or 12-2. Carlos just had one fight, but we trust so much in our training. And I pay the tickets to go to England. I pay the hotel. I pay everything, man. And then we go over there and we win that match. And there was a second match. So it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful journey, man. I feel like I'm rescued. I'm so thankful. Not only I'm thankful for God and for Carlos also, because I can rescue my life, you know, doing this. It's not only for him, you know, I did it to myself also.
Yeah.
You know? The investment was so beautiful. We know, I just feel sorry and I feel bad for the last fight in the UFC because the kid was 45 days off in Brazil, no training, spread ankle, spread knee, no training at all after the belt in LFA. So he came and fought in the UFC, his first match. Like he arrived one day before the fight. So, but we had to do that because there was opportunity to get into the UFC. But we have like 4 contract fights. But that's pretty much it, man. It's a lot of emotional stuff. It's just crazy journey.
Well, yeah, he's a professional.
Like Mike said, you and Carlos, you know, you took Carlos from the very beginning to that. You just told us a lot of that story. To me, that's jiu-jitsu at its highest level. It transcends lives, you know. Whatever happens on the mat, that's special. But the life-changing, it happens so many. I remember a very similar story. Do you remember another little guy, Hudson Rocha, from a Brazilian top team 20 years ago?
Okay.
Here we go.
It doesn't matter. The stories just come through. Carlson Gracie was a guy, obviously Mike always talks about him, who was known for bringing kids off the street. And jiu-jitsu changes lives. And, you know, you're able to do that now, and maybe that's what it was all about. Maybe it wasn't the fight.
For sure. You help one person, you're a success at life. And we, like this podcast, there's some reoccurring themes. There's coaches that help people in the beginning, and then there's poachers that are big game hunters that are very good at what they do, but they don't have the skill set to take somebody or give them the fundamentals in the beginning. But once they've developed those, they're excellent at creating game plans and furthering their careers. There's a huge difference between those two, a coach and a poacher. Both are important.
Huge.
But to be both of those is very special. Very few people are both.
True, man.
Yeah, the guy who starts at the very beginning is a personal relationship, and with the poachers, it's a business.
Yeah.
Very true. Perfect, Miguel. Perfect point of view.
Joe Moreira, one of your buddies, a black belt. Do you remember a brown belt from the Gracie Torrance Academy named Lowell Anderson that was there for 15 years, and then he just had enough and quit? No? Okay. I'm tracking that one down.
Yeah.
I'm tracking him down. There's a story there. So either way, why don't you describe your relationships with Joe Moreira, people that have really impacted your life? And Miguel, we can wind this one up. I'm done. And Francisco, you're an absolute professional, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, you guys, to having me here, man. You guys are the best in the business. Amazing questions, amazing details from the MMA history. We're talking about the whole beginning of this sport. You guys are 100% into that. I appreciate your work. You both are legends, man. Beautiful, beautiful work. Yeah, with Joe Moreira, man. Joe Moreira is a great guy. I met Joe Moreira in the 1994, 95, something like that. I came to LA. I was a Brazilian champion. I came go to his gym. I roll with him and his students. Man, he was, he loved the way I roll and work. I went to Japan to train back in the days when I was here. I spent 30 days in Kodokan in Tokyo, and I came back. I stayed at Joe Moreira's house. So it's a friendship, man. It's all 100% respect. I love that guy. He's like a really cool guy. He's 60-something years old. He keeps going. So it's beautiful, man. He's a good friend that the jiu-jitsu brought me to this life, man. 100%.
Francisco, thank you for your time, man. I'm gonna text you. I'll probably see you in Vegas on Thursday, Friday.
Beautiful, Mike. Thank you so much, guys. You guys are the best, legends.
It was an honor. Thank you very much, Francis. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for your blood, sweat, and tears. Thanks, brother.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Have a beautiful day.
Well, Mike, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu coral belt Francisco Bueno is in the books.
Well, here's the thing, Miguel. There is a bunch of high-end competitors that weren't a part of the Gracie system when the marketing machine took off. And to the Gracie's credit, man, they did not only a phenomenal job at it, but they monetized it every single level. And they still do today. Like, anybody that really disparages the Gracie system is kind of done so out of a little bit of jealousy involved. But there's also fighters on the other side that, you know, kind of rode between, they gym hopped. They went between Luta Livre and the Gracie system, or the Jiu Jitsu system and Luta Livre. And Francisco Bueno was driving that bus. Like, the hype behind him, it's kind of hard to imagine because his fight record isn't as deep, but all the Brazilians knew who he was, and they were very hesitant to fight him.
Yeah, he had a daunting reputation. I remember when I met him at that IVC, that he was a guy that he had some good polish, and his English wasn't bad by then either. You know, he had been living in the States and stuff. So he really, like, at that point, you're like, whoa, you take notice of a Brazilian guy speaking good English. I remember we'd asked him, because he was going to Pride, we asked him, you know, what about UFC? Are you going to do UFC? I remember, you know, you could hear, you know, the limitations in the language. He said, you know, Pride is better for me. Yeah, I'm sure it's better for you. You know, it's not 2 and 2 to show, you know, like some of the other guys or whatever UFC's offering. So he probably got, you know, a good $20,000, $30,000 for the Pride fights. And, you know, that definitely is better. And against Gracie, he just got the job done. I mean, that's IVC. And I think Gracie's a guy that enjoys the competition part of it, the one-upmanship of, all right, you beat me, I beat you. Like, the whole roll, you know, he was a gym rat. Gracie always liked to roll, but in that match, he got caught off guard by Bueno's intensity. He was just through the roof intense. Like, you know, like every time he'd be like practically frothing at the mouth every time he saw Gracie after that. And Gracie was like, what am I going to do with this guy? That was his question. What am I going to do with this guy? And Jason, at that time, was one of the most experienced guys out there. So, you know, he intimidated. He had, you know, the hype, but he also backed it up in the limited times that we saw him. And then the Vovchanchyn thing, I'm proud of him for admitting now, you know, you're in over your head against Igor Vovchanchyn, and you thought, yeah, I'm going to kill this midget. You know what I mean? So he's grown, and at least he understands that one's on him, you know?
Okay. So with Vovchanchyn, like Lytle has said in dozens of interviews, you need a championship mindset. You need to go out there, get your butt kicked from pillar to post, leave there and say, well, if I just change this a little bit, I would have whooped him. I would have killed him. And he said, you can say that, but you better believe it. And if you don't believe it, you'll never be a world champion. It's like Chris always says, you got to be delusional. So going into that's great. But the reality of the situation is that one loss, the first time he really ever lost, and this is outside of jiu-jitsu, because I know he lost to, obviously, Liborio, Mario Sparring, Fabio Gurgel. Like, the highest of the high-end guys is who he was competing with. And, dude, he closed his gym after that. Like, the rumors at that time were, oh, he had visa issues. He got sent home. He can't come back here now. But the reality of the situation is he couldn't pull himself out of bed. He was that depressed.
Yeah, you know, I can see that. And he's right about, like you point out all the time. I mean, Muhammad Ali had, Customado or whoever was responsible for teaching him. And it makes a difference when you don't have that. Even Lytle, our buddy, has talked about how, you know, he was like, all right, I got to run, you know, 100 wind sprints or, you know, do 100 of these. And all of a sudden he's like, when he's mentoring himself, he's like, you know, if I do just 20, I'll be fresher tomorrow. And start talking these things, you know, and there's no one there to call you out on that. And Bueno, as dedicated as he is, had nobody to combat that type of thing. When you get into a depression, they call it a downward spiral for a reason.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to stop that break of downward, you know? Yeah. And, you know, now obviously he's well beyond it and obviously, you know, formed into a totally different person. But yeah, I could see that being extremely hard on him because he believed his own hype.
Yeah. Now, and you have to. Muhammad Ali's favorite trainer, you're not going to read about this in anybody's book, what the reality situation is. Clarence Griffin. Montel Griffin, guy that fought Roy Jones Jr., beat James Toney twice. His father and Muhammad Ali were like brothers, man. Clarence Griffin was his favorite trainer. Anyway, back to Francisco Bueno. Him coming out and talking about that just shows just how honest he is, though. Like that, and he got emotional too. He didn't have a mom or he didn't have a dad. Dude, I didn't know that. There's nothing online about that. So essentially, he's, you know, we're not going to call him a ward of the state, but he had people looking out for him. They cared for him. He's filled with rage, filled with anger, I'm sure, based on his childhood. And rather than let that one instance define him, he took a kid off the street and he's got him in the UFC right now.
Yeah, and he's no joke in terms of what you talked about, honesty, because, you know, I was trying to help him because you could, you know, English is his second language, so there's sometimes where, you know, he's trying to really elaborate a story, and if you can help him. So I told, you know, I was like, hey, you can get emotionally trapped at like 15 years old and be an adult, you know, physically and everything like that, but if you're trapped emotionally there. And he was like, man, for him, it was 8 years old because that's when the tragedies in his family happened. So, you know, it's, yeah. I
could relate to that. I could relate to that, dude. Like you know, my kid's mom died. You know, I could honestly relate to that, you know, from a parent watching a kid. And it's like, I can't imagine the trauma. It's the hardest day of my life ever was telling my kid that her mom died. Like, I can't imagine having both parents gone. Like, dude, it choked me up too, dude. I'm not like Jamie Varner got me. He got me, you know, like it's.
I think, you know, it's all right to cry in the Lights Out podcast. I don't want it to become like a gimmick or something. It's like we try, but a lot of guys have reached over into that end where they get emotional and stuff.
Dude, Pedro Hizzo crying. You know, Semi Schultz crying.
So yeah,
four-time king of pancreas.
Yeah, so definitely, you know, I appreciate being the support for those guys because, you know, no one's talking about some of that stuff, and that really is. I do think, and Bueno said it too. To wrap up with it, because Bueno is I think a wise guy right now, like in terms of wisdom of the sport, and he's got a lot to hand down. You know, he said it's a total package. If you're not emotionally wound up and into the fight, if you think you're doing something, you know, else on the side, you know, Hector Lombard talked about it. He couldn't get his girlfriend situations together, and his emotions were all up and down and crazy. And he lost his first UFC fight after being one of the most hyped guys. You're not together 100% in mind, body, soul. Fighting it becomes more difficult. You're fighting yourself.
Dude, Lombard almost was in tears talking about what took place in Australia. Yeah, you're right. So, Miguel, we've got about 14 or 15 episodes that need time stamps still. Anybody that wants to do that, we'll have T-shirts within the next 10 days that we're going to send out. I've also got Art Davies' book. I've got probably about 20 copies of Art Davies' book. If you guys see any episodes with timestamps, we're going to probably make a real quick list and throw it on YouTube. You guys want to help us out with that? Bro, we'll send you out a nice little care package. You know, I don't know. We'll figure something out. And, dude, there's a guy, Rambo John Jay, who posts on the Underground Forum, MMA.tv, the Underground Forum. He's actually got a Reddit account, and he's just gaming the system. You got to post this in order to post that. And he's really posting a lot of our library. And what's taking place is we're seeing an influx of people. You can see it in our our comment section of people that had no idea that we even existed, even though we're like 150 episodes in.
Yeah, I hope it happens in 2023. It's been a fun ride in 2022. You know, we'll see.
Are you being a little ominous? Like if it doesn't happen in 2023?
Yeah, we're gonna keep doing this shit. I mean, it's you know, at this point, you're a lifer, I'm a lifer. I don't really care, but it would be nice to, you know, I don't know, maybe have new glasses.
Well, hey, Miguel, you know, we might be like living in tents and using McDonald's Wi-Fi, continuing the podcast. It'd just be nice to kind of supersize our meal occasionally. That's it.
You know, those big green dumpsters in the back of, like, you know, Starbucks and stuff.
Not a buffet.
You can still get the Wi-Fi through the green dumpster, and they provide a lot of shelter. Like you really could be in, you know, in a rainstorm in there.
Yeah.
So
anyway,
that may be where we do this from.
yeah, right. So Francisco Bueno's in the books, man. Fantastic interview. And what I really like BJJ Heroes, there's nothing on there. He doesn't have a Wikipedia page. Absolutely deserves it. The guy's been all over the world. He's fought in like 4 countries. And it's kind of like writing a book that already existed, but people refuse to acknowledge it. That's what we did. And it's a spectacular human being on top of that. So we got lucky on this one.
Yep. And yeah, hats off, Francisco Bueno, in the books.
Check out the full interview on iTunes, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms.